Football with friends is fun as hell. My name is Alex Dunlap here with Cody Carpentier on a big Wednesday. It's a big Wednesday, Cody, because we're going to be going over the projected fall camp depth chart. As we talked about yesterday, man, we're creeping up on less than 3 months left until we're going to be talking about this team in fall camp. They're taking a little bit of time off right now and getting some well-deserved rest, I'm sure, as the coaches are out doing their speaking stuff and recruiting and all the rest. But soon, man, they're going to be back out there on the field. They're going to be doing summer conditioning, and it's time to kind of look at what kind of questions were answered during spring with the Texas Longhorns, what still remains unanswered, where we see position battles coming into fall, all the rest of it. So with that said, I'll just go ahead and pull up the chart that I put up yesterday over on Orange Bloods and share the screen here if we're still looking okay there. So we'll just start out with we'll start out at the very top. I think at the strong side defensive end, the way that I have it slated out here is that this jack position is, clearly Ethan Burke returns as the starter over there at that spot. Remember, that was the same spot that Baron Sorrell played last year, that Burke was platooning with him. That's the position we're talking about here. Directly behind him, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on this, Cody. I've just placed Lance Jackson as outright number 2. We've heard all through the course of spring that this guy's going to be heavily involved. He's gotten to push and play with the ones. I think that Colton Vasek, who I've listed as the outright 3 here. Now, I could have put an or between Lance Jackson and Colton Vasek as if that was going to be a camp battle.
Yeah.
But
he's been too hurt.
Yeah, I think that I just think he picked a bad time to have shoulder surgery. Not that he has much of a choice in it. And, I love Colton Vasek, but I think that it's going to be an uphill battle here with the younger player and Lance Jackson. Where I put the position battle there was actually between Colton Vasek and Justice Terry, who's been playing both at the strong side defensive end and at the defensive tackle. I think in order to get that guy the reps that he needs as a freshman, given his current body makeup, being weighing 268 or whatever, I'll be interested to hear what you have to say about it. I think if he comes back to fall camp and he's weighing 285, I don't think it's that hard for a guy like that to put on 17 pounds. I think that he's probably predominantly at the 3 tech. And at that point, he will be mixing in within, I think, the top 4 or 5 at the interior defensive line. But I do think that as sort of a trapdoor and backup plan, Justice Terry, he should be he's your 5-star freshman stud, man. He should be able to come in and compete with Colton Vasek, who he hadn't really seen much of during his time at Texas until very late in the season last year, when unfortunately he had the shoulder injury.
So like we talked about coming into the spring with Terry and, pontificating about his weight and the difficulty of having a Simmons-like impact on the inside, being 285, 290 pounds, and that's technically undersized for SEC play. And he's also 18 years old, 17 years old. It's much easier, in my opinion, to win on the outside and to succeed on the outside. So I like how you cross-labeled Terry at D tackle and Jack, which you just talked about. But I think it would make the most sense to, play him like you played Sorrell last year. And, he's a guy that we saw Sorrell stand up on the inside a couple of times. We've seen, we've watched him succeed in pass rush ability all the way inside, not like really playing those, but we've seen Sorrell move in there and just, in the NASCAR packages and stuff. So I think that's something where we can see Terry play on the inside, but predominantly be on the outside. And the idea of having, I know Colt Vasek's dealing with his surgeries and stuff, but Terry and Lance Jackson, being rotational guys on that side, that's a really strong position, even though it might seem on the surface like it's slight. And for those maybe not in the Texas ethos, being like, man, they got freshmen out there, but it's like 2 freshmen 5-stars coming off that edge over there behind Ethan Burks, who, you look at him from an NFL perspective this next year, he's going to be in the conversation to get drafted, most likely if he can have a little bit of production. So I think that position in totality is pretty volatile from a snapshot perspective. I'm not sure it's going to be like, even though it's listed here, like you have Burke, Jackson, and then Vasek or Terry. I think it's going to be a very much a rotational spot that will be predominantly where Justice Terry plays. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Jackson or Terry or Burke, any three of them rotating along the interior as well.
At the defensive, and sorry if I cut out there. I think I lost my connection for a quick minute, but hopefully we're good. At the defensive tackle, I basically just right off the jump. I've seen neither hide nor hair of Murad Watson yet in real life, but I have reviewed his film. I do think that he comes in with some well deserved plaudits from the national media, and I think he comes in and he starts at defensive tackle. They just didn't see enough out of Travis Shaw this spring. He was held back because of his knee. I do think that this could be a mix and match thing with Watson, Shaw, Brevard. I think that's probably the most likely sort of three at the very top there to mix and match, because Watson played both nose and a lot of 3-tech, a lot of 4-tech up there at Syracuse. Shaw played mainly 3-tech. Brevard played a whole lot of nose coming from, what was that, Purdue?
Yep.
Yeah, Purdue. Alex January, we need to see the next step out of him, but I do believe that he probably will have an edge to start out over Levon Johnson, who they got from Maryland by way of
it's kind of funny how it's tough to
kind of it's harder. Well, there's just so many of them, right? I think Hero Canoe is still in the now. I know he's from Ohio State. He's still in the development stage of his college football career. So I think that's where you slide in a guy like Justice Terry, who's going to be in some form of development, even if he's a great addition and a shot in the arm to start, like you were talking about, NASCAR package, dime package, dollar package, all that kind of stuff. I think that's maybe where we see the most of Justice Terry, and I think probably around this Hero Canoe area at the defensive tackle is where he's going to be pushing for an actual spot on the depth chart as like the 4th or the 5th guy. I have Melvin Hills underneath him. Over here at the nose, I have Brevard up top, January or Johnson, and then Josiah Sharma or Myron Charles. I just haven't seen enough out of those guys this spring to know who's ahead.
Yeah, I think it's probably safe today to call Murad Watson and Cole Brevard the starting interior defensive linemen. After that, it does feel like it's a little bit of a complete toss-up, just given, like you mentioned, the health with Shaw, the continued maturation of Canoe, who seems like he's going to be more of a project than anything. Levon Johnson seems like he's going to be a little bit more of a project than anything. Guys that are going to get, I don't know, between 10 and 20% rotational snaps. That'd be kind of where I would estimate today. Again, the hide no hair thing, I think, equates to Melvin Hills as well. And I'm not sure what expectation should be for the true freshman, but I think this is laid out perfectly because, even though there's question marks around Alex January, I might eliminate the or between him and Levon Johnson, but just because Levon Johnson has Power 5 snaps, I think it's warranted. Would I be surprised if Terry had more snaps than Canoe on the interior? No. But that's why you have or there. So I think it's interesting. I really don't know what to have for expectations about Hero Canoe. I think I also keep calling him Harold, but it's Hero, obviously.
Hero's a much cooler name than Harold.
I know, but it's for some reason it's like it comes out the tongue. It's like Hero. It's like Harold. It's like just kind of rolls out with it. But I don't know. Again, it's unfortunate you weren't able to go to more than one practice, so we really don't know, other than like that one picture from like the dinner that they had the one night, like seeing Josiah Sharma and Myron Charles. You really don't know what to think about them from a like visual perspective. In comparison,
I would just like to see them like pushing the 1-man sled, hitting the 1-man sled, like anything.
Get a little bit of an idea, like, oh yeah, this guy, feels like he's in this, Sadir Mitchell role where it's just kind of like, yeah, he's gonna get, it's nothing there this year, or like, maybe Hero Canoe could literally, I know we haven't heard a lot about him, but I mean, he's coming from Ohio State, like
he came in with a ton of potential and he had hardly played.
It wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world to get some real snaps, but I think the safest thing here is three guys, and that's Watson at D tackle, Brevard at nose, and I think Shaw as the rotational D tackle next to Watson is like where I would, if I was to say like, all right, what can you put in ink? I think it would be those three things in those three roles. Be
Yeah.
1-2 or 1-1, and then Shaw would be my 1B rotational D tackle.
A little bit disappointing for Alex January that we can't put him quite in that
Yeah.
conversation just yet. And this could be this could be his year. Like obviously, it's in the thing I wrote about. It's like, is this group like? But now, I mean, you look at them. There's 10. Like they could be too big to fail. It's like it could be. It's like they're gonna find 4 guys out of these 10 that are gonna be able to get it done. And if they don't, they're gonna have all the depth in the world to just say, well, at least we got big bodies, and we're gonna keep them fresh. Right.
Yep.
And I
Which is
think
big.
yeah. And I think that means a lot. The edge rush, so the buck end position, as they call it, I think this one is fairly straight. It's like I don't have any oars, no position battles. Colin Simmons right here at the top of it. Trey Moore behind him, who I also have slotted in as at the outside linebacker in this new kind of linebacker role that they have going on. Zena Yamuzalo and Smith Orogbo behind him. Pretty straightforward stuff. As far as the edge rush position. I'm so curious, man, as to how they're going to use Trey Moore this year, and to some degree Brad Spence, who we keep hearing about, moving between this outside linebacker and the roles that they are playing in base.
Yeah, and that's the thing that they've said he's completely moved to linebacker, but I've
heard he's still playing a little bit at the buck end.
There has to be. He has to be playing. That's his superpower. You can't take away his superpower. And that's the one thing that I think at LSU they tried to. They didn't really. Maybe they didn't intentionally try to do this, but they kind of took away Harold Perkins' superpower, moving into linebacker because well, he's going to play this at the next level. It's like, I mean, there's guys like, David Walker from Central Arkansas that was drafted this year, and he was 6 foot tall, 285 pounds coming off the edge. Just a super, like, different body type. Like, Trey Moore is not an anomaly of a body type that you're like, well, he has to play linebacker. Like, this is a guy that can play edge. And I just because Colin Simmons is there, I think you're doing yourself a disservice to say Trey Moore's not playing there. So I like that you still have him listed behind Simmons as well as at the outside linebacker spot at the top with Brad Spence.
Yeah, and look, if we're just talking about like right at the very top, right, like Colin Simmons, Texas Beef Traders, it's the best, the best of the best. I just today I went down to the processor to pick up about 200 pounds of Axis deer meat and hog meat. Now, of course, I had to split it with my brother-in-law who went on the trip with me and was responsible for half those animals. But 100 new pounds of meat in there. Guess what I had to do, Cody? I love my wild game. I love it so much. But in reorganizing my freezers, they're the freezers that you that you open up that are like the chest freezers, right? Not like in your kitchen. And what I had to do is I had to take all of my Texas Beef Traders meat out of there and move it into the box and make sure that I got all my Axis meat in, right? I had whitetail and hog in the other one. And this one is just Axis and beef, right? So I got the Axis meat in, the Axis sausage in, and I had to just make it to where there was a spot on the very top for the Texas Beef Traders, because that's what I'm going in, and that's my go-to meat, right? It's delicious. You get 10% off, no vaccines, no antibiotics, no weird shots, nothing like this. It's a great experience to go in there to Texas Beef Traders to hang out with Darren and try the different wines or try the different beers. Try some of the different appetizers and things. There's a guy in there that sells hummus that they make right out in Cuernavaca. He makes it with 4 ingredients. It's delicious. It's just stuff like this, right? Texas Beef Traders, TexasBeefTraders.com. We got the beef jerky link right up top. You can scan that, and we would certainly appreciate you ordering from there, making sure you get your 10% off, and supporting our sponsors that honestly are some of the best we could ever imagine working with, and who support local ranches that do things right. Texas Beef Traders, TexasBeefTraders.com. All right. Thanks again to everybody for being here. Football with Friends. We're here every night at 6 p.m. on Orange Bloods Live. Please like the show, subscribe to the channel. We certainly do appreciate having you here. If it's your first time, make sure and come back again every night, 6 p.m. Let's move on to The Mike linebacker position, pretty straightforward to me. Anthony Hill, Brad Spence, Bo Barnes. It would not have been intuitive to me based on what we've seen at practice, but from what I'm hearing at sources, that's how it looks at the middle linebacker. Then at the will linebacker, that is Leongo Lafau, Anthony Smith, and Jonathan Cunningham. At the beginning of this year, Cody, we thought surely Brad Spence is going to push Leongo Lafau to start opposite Anthony Hill based on how productive he was at Arkansas, and also based on the fact that Brad Spence was set up to start at Arkansas.
Yep.
And so you say, well, why would he come to Texas not to start? I think, man, what it is I think he might still get a chance to push Leongo Lafau. But what I was told was that you got to remember, we love Lafau. You know what I mean? Like, regardless of what, what scuttlebutt there might have been around Leongo Lafau and how his play dipped and his run fits didn't hold up through the season the way that they did to start the season when everyone was so fired up about him. They still love him, and he's still one of the culture guys on the team. And I think Brad Spence is probably going to find himself in a role where he's going to be pushing Leongo Lafau, and he's going to be maybe like the David Binda of this group, like the LB3. And with the fact that Maurice Blackwell's gone, David Binda's gone, it also opens up some of those three linebacker sets for guys like Trey Moore and Brad Spence, who we have listed over there in the outside linebacker bucket.
Anthony Hill, everybody knows, top of the food chain here. But I did do a little piece over on Orange Bloods this morning, and he was outside of Arch Manning, who we don't have to talk about that today, but being the first overall pick projection, even though he's not going to come out. Anthony Hill's current NFL mock draft database ADP is 12th overall with some of the way too early mock drafts. He's the only first round pick that I would project right now, even though Malik Muhammad's name is also floated out there. Anthony Hill's clearly the number one on this defense, the best pure. Obviously Simmons is there too, but the number one, the leader. So Spence's role, like you said, it's going to come against Lafau. Like you said, you think they're still going to give him opportunity. Like, if they weren't going to give him an opportunity, he wouldn't be here. He would have left. He would.
Well, it was definitely part of the pitch that they were going to,
remember who was here a year ago, right? Who came through for the spring? Blackshear.
What?
Blackshear, the linebacker from Bama. You don't even remember he was here because he was here for 2 weeks, right? 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
I've forgotten all about. What was his name?
Was it Raheem Blackshear? No, that's the running back from Carolina. What's his first name? Kendall Blackshear.
Oh, Kendall Blackshear. Right. Okay. Yeah, I totally forgot about him.
Exactly. So if there was no role for Spence would have been gone. If they were like, well, you know what, you came in and Lafau, beat the hell out of you. Sorry, you're just gonna be a rotational guy. I think he would have gotten back in the portal. And
yeah, that's a good point, right? Yeah, it's a good point. Because he's gotten to see what his projected role is.
Exactly. And even though they've, whatever the role is for Trey Moore, which we haven't been able to see, obviously, because you haven't been at practice, you haven't been able to hear it. They seem to all be happy. I would have thought the same thing. It's like Trey Moore feels like, we've talked about this too, but he feels like he could be in a pinch spot too. It's like, well, if we're being honest with ourselves, if I was told that, you're not as good as Colin Simmons, he's the starter, and, we really don't have a spot for you because, Lafau, we brought in Spence, like they're true linebackers, Trey, like, you're going to be playing, X percent of snaps and, you may not get double-digit sacks, which is going to hurt your draft stock. Could you tell yourself a story where he jumps back in the portal and goes to, Oregon or Ohio State or something? Yeah, sure you could. Or Penn State, maybe. Like, you could do it with Spence and Moore. So I'm just going to go ahead and trust the coaches, trust the defense, and trust that they're gonna figure this thing out. But I think you have the right guys plugged in here. Spence moving across multiple positions, Lafau playing his singular role, but it's not going to be a full blown, will linebacker. He's going to be, like you said, rotated with Spence. Probably get some Trey Moore in there. And then also, like, we saw some Anthony Smith last year, so I wouldn't be shocked to continue to see Anthony this year, and then potentially some Bo Barnes as well, rotational with Hill. So the way this is laid out, the only player, and I think you have him buried, is Jonathan Cunningham, a little undersized right now. I think it's laid out perfectly.
Yeah, and it's look, I think that the way that the liquor is organized at Specs, it's laid out perfectly. You have a section for the tequila, you have a section for the vodka, you have a section for the wines, the beers, the finer foods. There's I mean, talk about a great sponsor that we have at Specs, and I love having sponsors that I frequent so very frequently. Thanks so much to our great friends over there at Specs.
Have you heard the news? Specs is turning 63, and we're celebrating you. Whether you're looking for whiskey, canned cocktails, or wine, Specs has it all with Texas size savings all month long. Specs. Cheers to save.
Yes, it's football with friends. Alex Dunlap and Cody Carpentier here on Orange Bloods Live. Please remember to like the show and subscribe to the channel. We're here every night at 6. So if you dig what you're hearing, please come back and see us tomorrow night. We'll certainly love to have you. Let's move on to the nickel spot here. And I've slated it as just Jelani McDonald and Wardell Mack. Wardell Mack has been the presumptive starter through most of spring ball, but that has to do with the fact that Derek Williams has not been playing, and Jelani McDonald has flexibility, as we very well know, to play safety and nickel. The move into nickel this year is one that feels very exciting to me. Coach Sark talks about how he's been a positive force on the defense. There was a day, I guess, in the second to last week of camp where somebody had reported to me that just Jelani McDonald is just a hair on fire hellraiser coming off the edge. Just a rocket propelled grenade to the quarterback, and I found that very exciting to hear. So there were times, during spring football, wherever guys like Xavier Filsaime were starting there at safety for Derek Williams, and Jelani McDonald would move down into nickel. But once Derek Williams does come back, people have forgotten that he's, one of the most efficient and explosive and just really good, man. Really good players on the entire Texas defense. It opens things up for Jelani McDonald there with Wardell Mack behind him at the nickel.
Do you think nickel is the spot that Jelani's drafted?
Yeah, I think he'll be drafted as like a safety / nickel / dime linebacker.
So potentially like a branch.
Maybe Branch meets like Isaiah Simmons.
Isaiah Simmons, who got signed today, I think, or yesterday by the Packers.
Yeah, not quite the career arc that he had hoped for.
Not quite. That could be an interesting defense to revitalize it. McDonald, the reason I brought that up is because he was mocked at like 207th right now. And I really couldn't think of an ideal spot, just given we haven't seen a lot from him other than projection. But yeah, everything we've heard sounds like McDonald's going to be this guy in the nickel and, float around. He's with his ability to play safety if there's injuries like there was last year. So, yeah, straightforward.
At the two corner spots, we know that Jalen Gilbo has moved to the outside corner, and Manny Muhammad is going to be starting on the other side of him. Now, I think Kobe Black is definitely sort of CB3, if that makes sense. A guy that could rotate in situationally. Now, I don't know what they're going to do as far as field and boundary, so that's why I was cowardly and just cheated and just put corner, because I haven't got to watch enough practice. I do know that Manny Muhammad and David Keith Williams probably in the chat probably has all the stats that we would ever need for this.
He's gonna cook you. He better not say anything bad.
Manny Muhammad, I do know that from his first season he played only boundary, right? And in his second season he would play both boundary and field whenever one of these nickel corners that was moving to outside corner last year, lining up next to, of course, Jade Barron. This year he's getting lined up next to another nickel turned corner in Gilbo. So I think that I just kind of think these guys, I think they're going to line up. I think that what's going to happen is just like it happened last year. It's like they'll line up Manny Muhammad on the boundary side, but then once the field flips and they're over on the other hash mark, they don't move him. You know what I mean? They don't move him. So I think that's going to be the case. I do know that Kobe Black last year was like always on the boundary. They really like him, and we've talked about what that means. Is like the boundary is the short side of the field. You like your corners on that side to be a little bit more physical, a little bit longer, have more of the ability to redirect against these X wide receivers, get in their hip pocket, my ball mentality and stuff. Whereas you want your guys over at the field corner to be more shifty, more ability to cover open space, more ability to more ability to drive down and close on footballs and try and jump footballs, stuff like that, right. That's how you kind of think about the dichotomy of these two spots. Warren Roberson has been the guy with the twos though all all spring. I just wonder, I'm like, we've heard Santana Wilson getting some work with the twos, and I just can't get it out of my head that Cade Phillips, it's like he's just such a sick player, such a sick prospect. I have oars at the kind of the CB4 between Roberson, Santana Wilson, or Cade Phillips. I think that that's still a going to come into camp as a position battle that we're not exactly sure of. And then behind Kobe Black here, I have Caleb Chester or Grayson Littleton. Grayson Littleton was not supposed to make it in for spring football, but then somehow I guess enrolled and did. So he won't be any kind of new addition here this summer. He's a little bit of a known quantity, but I I'm assuming that those two guys will be those two freshmen will be battling it out. Kind of for for lower spots on the whole pecking order.
All right. I've agreed with you a lot so far, basically on everything. This is going to be where I probably disagree a little bit.
Okay.
One, I do think Grayson Littleton should probably be listed at nickel. I thought that's what we had heard maybe like a month ago or so. So that's where I listed him on my depth chart was nickel inside.
Do you really need 3 nickels?
Huh?
Do you need 3?
I don't know if you need 3, but I think that's where he's playing. So I think that just is what it is. But I thought that was reported, but I could be wrong. Maybe that's just I don't know. Doesn't matter. But I think he's bottom of the barrel anyways right now at the cornerback position. My thought is, and it's a little bit of a long one here. We've heard that the door is open. There's one scholarship left, maybe 2. I think there's 1 scholarship left on the board. There's 84, 80, they can hold 85. And we've heard that if a cornerback potentially came open, they would go get him. I know the portal's closed right now, but coach hiring and firing could sway and have things happen. But the thought was at least brought up this spring that a cornerback wouldn't be out of pocket for them to go after. And I'm looking through NFL mock draft database information the last day because of way too early mocks and stuff. I made a post up on Orange Sports. Go check it out. And Manny Muhammad was mocked 23rd in ADP right now in the 2026 NFL draft.
Wow.
He's listed at 6 foot tall. He's listed like 178 pounds on the Texas website. His cousin, Jabbar Muhammad, was 5'9" and an eighth, 182 pounds. Short arms, sub 29-inch arms, ran a 4.54, good, like fine athlete. Second team all Big Ten, second team all Pac-12. You know where he was drafted last weekend, Alex?
I don't. It wasn't anything that spiked up my spidey senses. It
wasn't drafted.
What?
Wasn't drafted.
Yeah.
Wasn't drafted. And Jabbar's a guy that Texas fans really wanted. That more than just Texas fans wanted him right a year ago, but he decided not to go that direction. I'm not saying Manny Muhammad's an undrafted player, but what I'm saying is we saw the cracks in the surface last year with Manny. And my personal opinion, again, not having seen practice this spring, just having hearsay, is it feels like if there was one position on the roster this year that was like the quarterback position was last year, and let me preface this with saying that is the Quinn Ewers is starting because he's been starting and because he's devoted his time and efforts to helping this team and growing and has earned that role. But you can see behind him, there is this world beater of a talent. And to me, that's Kobe Black, the world beater of a talent that you just can't keep off the field. And people are like, man, put Arch in there at the goal line. Let's see Arch throw the football before half. Let's get Arch a couple carries a game, right? How about I think we're going to be hearing, get Kobe in there more, get Kobe in there against Jeremiah Smith in week 1, get Kobe in there, here and there. Like that's the direction. I know, I don't think you can do it, but just like you couldn't do it last year with Arch, but I think if everything was equal and there was no, we got to make sure we pay this guy so he can stay here. We don't want to lose him, stuff like this. I think if everything was equal, Kobe would be starting at that corner spot.
That's an interesting take. I mean, I can get it. David Keith Williams is having an aneurysm over in the chat. But I think that, I mean, I do agree that, we've litigated this. I think Manny Muhammad is a really good player. I think that he was not, prime Deion Sanders lockdown last year. He just wasn't. All right, so we'll move on to safety here to close this thing out. I think this is pretty straightforward. Derek Williams, if healthy, and Michael Taft are going to start.
Yep.
Phil Smee and JJ, Jordan Johnson-Rebel are right behind those guys. Zealous Hicks is really good depth behind him. My interesting thing is I did put an or between Jonah Williams and it doesn't necessarily need to be between Phil Smee. It could be between him or JJR. I don't know how much it affects him that he's having to play baseball and he won't be here until the summer or what, whether he's just going to come in and be some kind of special teams demon to start and then, start wrapping his head around safety as a freshman and come in next year, because Derek Williams probably leaves for the draft, right? Michael Taft will be gone. Maybe this is his integration year, but he's just such an elite player that I can't help but have some kind of pathway on this depth chart for him, at least being, safety 3 and like a good rotational piece to come in. It's the same way that Jelani McDonald was last season, during the time that everybody was healthy. So that's kind of how I see it. Be interested to hear what your thoughts here on safety as we wrap up.
So Derek Williams is one that I wrote down. Like I was projecting rounds today for draft picks for next year, and TBD players was Derek Williams along with Jelani and Cole Hudson. So Derek Williams, I just kind of like, we know the talent is there, but got hurt last year, and it wouldn't completely shock me to see him come back in 27. So and kind of pull that Michael Taft type of situation. But again, like you talk about with Phil Smee and Hicks and Jonah and even JJR, like there's a lot of talent in that room. So I could definitely see him walking. But yeah, this is without a doubt, the 2 number ones here, Taft and Williams. The Jonah stuff is interesting. We heard a lot about Phil Smee this offseason, about the positivity there. Seen a lot of, good footage from, the old Instagram from Jordan Johnson-Rebel. So have a little bit of expectation there, probably a little more special teams, I guess, than defense, given the depth here at safety. But then Jelani McDonald, though, feels like he would be the shoehorn if something happened, where if Williams went down, it feels like Jelani would move back. If Taft went down, it feels like Jelani would move back, and there'd be kind of a shifting there. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I think that's a good point for sure. Kind of the whole Cole Hudson thing, if something happened to one of the guards.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I like it. That's the depth chart. Now, you can email us, fwfemails@gmail.com. You can find Cody on X at Cody Carpentier. I am at Alex Dunlap NFL. Again, this is Football with Friends. We're here every night, 6 p.m. Make sure and tune in, whether it's on X or hopefully on YouTube, to help us with our YouTube views. If you could, please like the show on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. If you have a friend that might like this kind of content, please let them know. It helps us to grow the show. You guys have been so awesome with helping us to grow this show, even here during the off season. And finally, if it's your first time watching the show, man, thank you for being here. We'd love to have you, and we hope we can see you again, whether you're watching live or whether you were watching it the next day, which 99% of you do. All right. Thank you for being here. We'll be back on Thursday. Love you all. God bless you. For Cody, I'm Alex. We're done.